Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Are you ready?
This live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Live
Are you
talk.
ready?
Yes, sir.
Are you ready?
Hey, greetings and welcome to Live Talk. I am your host, Arthur Jeremiah, alongside my two co-hosts, Minister Samuel.
Hey, welcome back to Live Talk.
And the spiritual ambassador, Yike Ezekiel.
Peace. Good afternoon.
All right, before we go to anything, let's go to our general statement and disclaimer.
General statement. Live Talk is proudly powered by TBS Goodwill, Builders of the Highway Foundation, and Men of Purpose. Together, we're bringing about awareness to the everyday challenges facing individuals, communities, and our nation. We tell our stories, listen to yours, and always respect different perspectives. Want to share your voice? Email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com to be a guest, or if you would like to contribute to our mission, purpose, go to livetalkorl.com to give a donation. Disclaimer. Information provided during this event and others to come does not constitute the official opinion of Live Talk or its affiliate entities. It is strongly recommended that viewers seek independent expert advice regarding any topics discussed, as legal requirements differ significantly across jurisdictions and are subject to frequent changes. If you have questions or concerns, you can always email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com, or you can DM us on Facebook and or Instagram at Live Talk Orlando.
All right. Welcome back. My brothers, how are you doing, Minister?
Doing wonderful. Hey, looking forward to this Juneteenth show, which is where we are. So, hey, just looking forward to getting into it.
Indeed. Yike Ezekiel, how you doing, my brother?
I am magnificent on this great, hot Florida day.
Hot it is. You know, somebody was talking about going to the beach. I was like, it's too hot to go to a beach.
Almost
How's it too hot to go to the beach?
Don't need get that big umbrella.
Right. No, it's definitely hot here in the state of Florida. So if you're in the state of Florida, make sure you stay and use some AC. Or getting you some cool water.
Dehydrated.
And definitely do that. Indeed. All right, family. I hope you're doing well today. We're just going to give you a rundown of the show today. First, we'll have the minister word of today. Right after that, we'll go to a commercial break. Then we'll come back. Our main topic today is Juneteenth economic power. Freedom then and freedom now. What does economic power look like today? And right after that, we'll go to another commercial break. And then we'll come back with either some rural or community news, or we'll continue with this topic. We'll choose at that time which direction we go. We'll get ready to close out with a quote, a motivational quote or reading from the host. So, with no further ado, Minister, what is the word of today?
Word of today, since we celebrate Juneteenth, word of the day for June 20th, 2026, going to be emancipation or emancipate. And it is defined as the fact or process of being set free from legal, social, or political restriction. Emancipate, to free from any controlling influence or beliefs. Emancipate, to free from restraint, control, or the power of another. Emancipation, to free from bondage or slavery. A process of giving people social or political freedom and rights. And some synonyms are liberation, freedom, independence, and sovereignty. And then, of quote from former President Barack Obama. He said that Juneteenth has never been a celebration of victory or an acceptance of the way things are. It is a celebration of progress, emancipation.
All right, emancipation. I'll make sure you have that word locked in because we're going to talk a lot about that today. And thank you, brother, for that word of today. And we're going to go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Because Scott & Associates always treats me like family, I refer my family to them. So when preparing for my taxes and I know exactly what to bring in coming in, it makes the process so much easier. Anyone should hire Scott & Associates because they are professional, respectful, and very knowledgeable. And with all of my heart, I can always count on them.
At NOY Store, we bring culture, style, and wellness all in one place. Explore our collection of cultural apparel designed to inspire and connect. From t-shirts to polos, boldly tell your story. Need guidance on your journey? Check out our books written to inspire and support your spiritual, personal, and community growth. And give your body the care it deserves with our health and wellness products like natural toothpaste, soothing body butters, and more. We're always adding new products to empower your life so you can live with purpose and style. Visit noystore.com today, where culture, wellness, and inspiration come together. Shop at noystore.com.
All right, family, welcome back. Make sure you go to the noystore.com and definitely shop. You can get the spiritual significance of a name there, but you can also get our toothpaste, an all natural toothpaste. You won't find that everywhere. Isn't that right, Minister?
You definitely won't. One that's actually meant to help your teeth and gums on your journey because you want to have them with you for a long, long time.
Indeed. Yes, sir. All right. So let's get into this. Before we even talk about where we are today, we got to understand where this really comes from. We're talking about Juneteenth. Juneteenth marks June the 19th, 1865, which was the day Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, and informed enslaved Black people that they were free. Now, here's the part that always stand out. This was 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation had already been signed by Abraham Lincoln, which was in January the 1st, 1863. So technically, freedom had already been declared, but it wasn't enforced everywhere. And in places like Texas, slavery continued until this news was finally delivered. That's why Juneteenth isn't just about freedom, it's about delayed freedom. It's about a moment where people were living in bondage, not because freedom didn't exist, but because it hadn't reached them yet. And that hits differently when you really think about it. Because fast forward today, we're not in physical change, but the question becomes, are there still areas in our lives, in our community where freedom exists, but we haven't had full access to it yet? Especially when it comes to economics, ownership, and wealth. With that being said, I know growing up in my household, Juneteenth wasn't something that was celebrated. Like I just came into Juneteenth, I don't know, probably about 10 years ago. But I don't even know if my mother had a clue what it was, even at that time. Being in the South, the Klan may have, instilled some type of fear in them. So if they did know, they wasn't celebrating it. So growing up, what did Juneteenth mean to you, if anything? And how was that meaning changed now today. So we're going to look at how Juneteenth, that's the question for our audience today. What does that, if you get a chance, put that in our chat, because we want the audience to be able to chime in on that question there. What I said. Oh, you waiting on me? Okay. I thought I gave you the question already. I didn't give you the question yet. Okay, so when you think about Juneteenth, not just the history, but the meaning, what does it represent to you today? So we'll put that in the chat, because we want them to be able to answer that question as we go through the program today. Okay. Now, I turn it back to our brothers today. And one of the things like I said, growing up, that wasn't something that we talked about in my household. I didn't come into Juneteenth until I became an adult. And like I said, probably maybe 10 years ago, it may have been a little longer than that, but I'm just going to say 10 years ago is when I came into the knowledge of Juneteenth, and the importance of it at the same time. So the question becomes, and I'm gonna turn to you, Ezekiel. Growing up, what did Juneteenth mean to you, if anything, and how has that meaning changed you or changed now? Has that changed any?
Yes, it changed drastically, because growing up, I had no knowledge of Juneteenth. There was no celebrations in my community, and I had never heard of the term until very recently, within the last 4 or 5 years. So growing up, it had absolutely no significance on me. Now that I have become conscious of it and what it entails, the impact is I want that freedom, because as you espouse, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves. However, the power structure didn't allow the media to put forth that information to almost 2 years later. So that in itself says a lot, that you didn't even know that you was free. So that means somebody was still getting free labor from you, because you thought you still had to stay in the same position that you was. So when I fast forward that to today, because back then we know they were more physical slavery, and I look at where we enslaved mentally at from those 4 centuries of physical slavery. And when I look at the way we think and how it affects every aspect of our life, that is the freedom that I'm trying to acquire, getting out of that slave thinking that has you entrapped and still keeping you in a lower class position in life, because you don't know how to think outside of that right there. So the significance of it, again, in this day and age, is being able to identify within yourself a way of thinking that's not beneficial for you, and transforming that into something that will allow you to prosper in that area, whether it be physically concerning your body, whether it be mentally concerning your health, whether it be economically concerning changing your spending habits or your saving habits, or whether it be domestically and how you're treating your mate or your spouse. So this is what it means to me to empower myself in every aspect of life, so that I don't still be like them years later, still in slavery.
Yes, sir. So, Minister, do you feel like Juneteenth today is being celebrated properly, or has it become more performative, like in regards to purpose?
I think it's actually twofold. now being recognized, or I think now is more recognized. Some may have performed, celebrated it for a purpose, but until you know something, you can't apply a purpose to it. So now that it has become more widely recognized, now is the time I think that it needs to be more done with a better purpose. Because like unless you really grew up in Galveston or in Texas, a lot of states, a lot of people were not aware of Juneteenth. Same way it took them almost 2 years to find out celebration like Emancipation Day. That was not taught in school. And I know it wasn't taught in my home. I found out about it. And so now that people are aware, now we have the internet and people see it and they can do research. You can jump on, but if you don't really get the full meaning, like it's a real deep subject because it's, for example, Lincoln Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves. Just to be clear, what he did was an executive order. And the state of Texas, they were aware of it. They just chose not to follow it. So it literally took sending Union soldiers down there to force it. So now a lot of the people in the area, of course, when they found out free, that was a big thing. Yet, believe it or not, there were places in Texas because the soldiers couldn't go everywhere.
Right.
There were still places in Texas who were finding out about it. Emancipation Day, when the soldiers came, was a big one. Maybe if you want a large plantation and they sent them 2,000 troops, because I mean, there's doing the research, they say 6,000. I don't think 6,000 went to Texas. I hear the number was more like 2,000. But you had really large plantations. If you want a plantation that only had 5 people or 10, and they were still under that same mindset of, do you let me know you're free? So the part about the purpose is we have to understand that freedom is ours, but we got to earn it and be able to take part of it. You're free when you left that plantation and say, you know what, get my 40 acres and a mule. That becomes transformative. That becomes the action. You're aware of it. A lot of slaves had nowhere to go, so they had to go back to the slave master on the plantation and maybe work there. He was working, so that's why I say it's twofold.
Right.
Now that we're aware of it, we need to become more into what does it really mean to celebrate it, and then how do we as a people make it a true freedom?
Right. Like you said, we was let go, considered free, but free to do what? Like you didn't give us no direction. We don't have any land. We don't have anything to call our own. So how are we truly free? And so they're going back to the slave master to work for free just for shelter, food. So it's almost like you back in the same situation, but now it's your choice to be in the situation. But what other choice you have at that time? So no, I agree with that when we talk about performative versus purposeful. I think, to your point, there's thinking about, 10 years ago, when I came into the knowledge and the consciousness of it. Maybe it was a little longer than that. I'm just saying 10 years. But that's when I start seeing a lot of people conscious of it. But at that time, we're thinking more about, is awareness enough? So, or should Juneteenth come with action, like supporting Black businesses, education or investment? And I believe that some people may think awareness is enough. And that's why you'll find people, saying Happy Juneteenth, putting certain things out on social media, which is good because a lot of people don't know about it. Some people see them like, what they talking about, what they got going on. But then now other people start to research and say, oh, Juneteenth, that was our Emancipation Day, because we wasn't truly as a whole free at that time. So we became free once that information went to the other, enslaved slaves at that time, which made us free as a whole nation of people. So that's why we celebrate Juneteenth, because now we became supposedly free as a nation of people. But again, it goes back to free to do what? Because even at that time, we have to understand that there were certain things put in place that then took away our freedom. We ain't gonna get into that right now. It's a part of this program. We're gonna get into that, but that is something that we have to consider and take into consideration as well. But truly, it's a part of our history and culture in this country, and we have to recognize and we have to be intentional about the things that goes behind that, because understanding that we were free, now we're free now today to do business with one another. We don't have to settle on, making a choice. Well, we can make a choice, but we're free to do business with one another. We're free to support one another. And that's the difference between awareness and making it more actionable. Like, well, we now taking action and doing the things that are going to grow our culture and our community as a whole. So just understanding that, it brings back a lot of clarity to why we're actually celebrating Juneteenth. And I think as it begins to become more, more awareness comes to it, it's going to then elevate us to the point to understand it's just not about awareness, it's about action at the same time. And I think that's Juneteenth that we definitely have to take into consideration, family, that there is an action behind Juneteenth, because if we don't put action behind it to grow our community, what they're going to do, they're going to come in and commercialize it, and then they're going to be selling you things, and then now we become consumers of something that belongs to us. So we don't want to become that. So let's take control of it. Let's take action behind that. And let's start to do the things that, that brings the community together as a whole. So we have to have more than just awareness. We have to have action behind it as well. So if Juneteenth was about physical slavery, let's talk about the freedom we're still chasing today, and that's economic freedom. When you think about Juneteenth, not just the history, but the meaning, what does it represent to you today? And I want to get a little bit into this here, because we talked about economic power all the time, but let's define it clearly. So what does economic power actually look like in a Black community today, Minister?
And one of the reasons I chose that quote, President Obama, is because he said it was about, not that everything was already there, but it was about progress. What he said was Juneteenth has never been a celebration of victory or an acceptance of the way things are. It was making it into the White House. That's a celebration of progress, but the victory still haven't been won. You gotta see as much progress as was made with that act, and that's kind of tied in with Juneteenth. Look at the fallback after that happened. So it's like when economic power, if like to be free, truly we all have to. And that goes beyond color lines. People, everybody need to understand if any of us are slaves, we all still stuck with slavery. And that's a big piece. But with us specifically, like, we celebrate in this country. We celebrate the 4th of July. I see our people celebrate. And that's okay. That's a good thing. But if you're doing it with a purpose, we weren't free on the 4th of July, 1776. We didn't get ours until emancipation. Actually, the 13th Amendment made it a law. Because another president could have came in and signed it with a pen, and what Lincoln did would have been out the water.
Right.
So thank God that they put it into the Constitution. See, we celebrate the 4th of July as a benefit. A whole lot of money. We be talking about economics. Holidays are based around economics.
Right.
Who's benefiting off that? So now with Juneteenth, it's a national celebration. We need to make sure that we make it an economic term for us.
Right.
How do we benefit economically? If it's a national thing, we should be benefiting. It starts with, recirculating dollars in our community. I say it all the time, but we can't just do it on Juneteenth. We need to, if that'll spark it. But we need to be conscious of doing that every day in the year. That's what emancipation is about the freedom of taking that money and making it circulate within our community, because that's how the wealth begins. Because most of the wealth goes out. Just imagine, even if we had, people cook hot dogs, burgers, somebody making money.
Right.
Charcoal, lighter fluid, red, white, and blue flags. We need to capitalize off Juneteenth. And how is that going to recirculate the dollars back into our community? So like you say, outside influence, which is not about emancipation, corporations take the dollars and then do something different with it. We need to make sure the dollars are being brought internally instead of externally.
Indeed. We definitely have to do that. Ezekiel, do you feel like we are taught how to build wealth or just how to survive financially?
Well, based on what he just had to say concerning wealth in your community, that tells me that there's no wealth building teaching going on within our communities. As we've spoken before, the mass majority grow up with no understanding of finances. They don't know how to save money. They don't know how to budget. So wealth building is not a subject matter that's taught in our communities. It's not even taught in the schoolhouses. And that's why the mass majority of us are living check to check. So we have the perpetual mentality now that we are in survival mode. And as long as we can get past this month bills, we good. But we know that cycle will be back in the next 30 days. So we're trying to get at it again. And this is where our faith as a people come in at, because most of these single mothers, especially the young ones, they be on a prayer. That's the main thing that they do to help them get through. And the problem is they don't have the wisdom to pass down to their children economics so that their children can get or break what's being termed now as the generational curses that plague us as a people financially. So with no outlets, there's no Black people that own banks or that's working in banks that's creating tutorials or seminars on how to raise your children up. You look in other cultures, you got the guys like Dave Ramsey that's putting out this information to teach his people how to be financially secure, starting with 5-6-year-old children. Our churches, which is the main staple in our communities, are not giving our people wealth building classes. They're not taking the precepts that they have in that Bible to teach economics so that the people can become rich and get out of that survival mode and begin to thrive economically, because that relieves a lot of stress on the brain. When you don't have to worry about where your next meal coming from, where the next money coming from the bills. How, if my child gets sick, I can't even take him to the hospital because I can't afford the ambulance ride. Or if I miss work, then I'm 2-3 days behind now. So no, we need those principles to be soundly placed in our communities on a regular basis so that our children understand the difference between going out and purchasing depreciating products, spending all our wealth on things that the moment we purchase it, the value of it dies. But that's what our music, that's what these TV shows glamorize. So we want the jewelry, we want the fancy cars, we want things that depreciate and literally are liabilities instead of building up assets. So we don't teach our children the difference between a liability and an asset economically. And this is why our communities are deemed poor communities. And now that's why developers are able to come in the communities with the gentrification and begin to disperse us out of communities that we've been in for 40, 50, 60 years. Now they have us displaced all over the cities. There's no more hoods now. And that is because we don't understand the power of pooling our own resources. It's like you look at what Florida brought in 1988 when they brought the lottery to the state. And you got, 100 people putting $10 on the lottery ticket. The person that's the lottery, how much money are they making? So even if somebody do hit the lottery and they pay out 100 million, how much have they taken in just to pay this person 100 million? So the math is always in their favor. So if we can begin to understand economics and how to create products among ourselves instead of being the vast consumers in America and allowing that money to flow, now we have money in our communities to make sure our communities clean, to get the potholes out, to get the proper stop signs so we don't keep running over each other, to be able to have the parks, the schools, and the trades that's needed for any community to flourish. We won't have to be driving outside of our community for the products that we'll have within our own community if we pool our resources. But that's one of the negative effects that we know slavery had on us. It created a mass distrust among us. Because if 10 of us get together and they say, okay, we deeming this brother or sister as the treasurer, the other 8 gonna be like, why they the treasurer? How we know they ain't gonna take the money? Nah, I ain't trust them. So until we understand that we're still in a mindset that's not going to allow us to flourish economically because of our lack of knowledge. And we're not doing anything to change that. We're just sitting in the mud and we liking it. We like the hole. We just wallowing in it. We have a desire to get out of it, but that desire is not strong enough for us to stand up and put it into action. Nobody's getting online, going to school, learning about economics, but I could be online watching social media for hours. Something that's not beneficial to me, something that will eventually take money out of my pocket instead of learning something that would give me everlasting wealth. So yeah, we are in a people at survival mode. Even the stats that the government put out show you that the average person doesn't have $1,000 in savings. So any minor or major catastrophe that may occur in their life, they're gonna have to make a sacrifice. Do we eat this week or do we keep the lights on? And you never want to be in that position. And most of us don't have a money problem. We have a money managing problem. We don't know how to direct the money that we're getting because the vast majority of us working or we got some type of hustle that's generating income. But we don't know how to put that in a position to where it continues to make money. And until we understand that, hey, we got to get out of survival mode. This ain't how life's supposed to be. We're going to stay in that condition.
I like that. So basically, you're saying we surviving financially, opposed to being taught like the wealth building. And I agree with that because just understanding what you just shared and knowing that most of our household, and when we're saying we're talking about most people, because we can go back, coming out of, slavery, having some type of freedom, we did create organizations for ourselves. And some of these organizations were elite organizations, but then they had something in place called brown paper bag test. So the brown paper bag test, it excluded a lot of us that was darker than the brown bag. So we couldn't be a part of these organizations, these institutions that was teaching wealth building, because we have some prominent people amongst us that are doing wonderful. We got billionaires. But what was the difference? You look at, your upbringing in a household where you have a single parent that may not have education up to, ninth or 10th grade because they had to work all the time. So they couldn't instill that education in you, didn't know what wealth was like my brother sharing, and hadn't lived, by whatever means of income that was coming in at the time to pay rent or, lights or whatever it may have been. But surviving financially, as my brother shared, that's what majority of us did because we didn't have the wealth building training that now solidifies us to understand what wealth actually looks like so that now we can apply ourselves in that manner. But when we look at like nowadays, you see more conversation about generational wealth, credit, investing, entrepreneurship. I believe this is a real progress because, everybody is talking on different levels. But I also think it's trending talk. We always talking about all this stuff here, but and I will tell you why, I believe that and I think like that because generational wealth, in my opinion, starts with the one that has the knowledge, when we're talking about the, being taught wealth building, the one that has attained that type of knowledge and information. We have one, Dr. Boris Watkins is one of our, economic, financial gurus within our culture. He has the Black School of Business, and he teaches investments and things of that nature. I don't know anyone else if you and you always share, but he was one that came to mind when I was thinking about it. But we don't have a lot of, those representatives or influencers in our community that's ethical enough to teach us certain things when it comes to wealth building. And then now what happens is we have to go out and we have to pay for this stuff. So we'll go out and we'll pay for it, but may not get the right information. So that tells you right there that you're trying to understand, the financial, how to get to that level. But it's a cost that you have to pay to get to that level. And it's sad sometimes, or all the time, when we within our community have the information and we don't want to share the information because now we're trying to get rich off of one another. And that's where the stigma come in at, can I trust this person? Can I trust this person to do this, that, and the other? Why can't I, keep up with the funds? Why you got to keep up with the funds? So we have a big trust issues, like my brother said, amongst us that keeps us from working together because we feel like one of us don't get over on the other. You don't have we all have equal information. You're not, you don't have more information than I have. So why should I give in to you? So that becomes that disconnect that we have amongst one another. So understanding wealth from a generational standpoint, always look at it like this here. Entrepreneurship can be a start, but your credit, you have to understand credit. And as you understand entrepreneurship and credit, because that can get you to the next level, because no job is going to make you rich. I don't care how many years you worked on this job or whatever it may be, it's not going to get you rich. And the only way that you can get at least to that next level is begin to own your own business. But then you have to have measures in place when it comes to that, because we know how the institutions are when it comes to getting capital to start a business or run a business. And we don't have generational wealth. Like I always say, I'm the first of everything in my family. And this generation, I believe a lot of us are the first of anything when it comes to that, because the information and knowledge is there. And we're trying to establish that now so that our future generation can have something like a jump start, because they can sure get their children a jump start. Indeed. So when we think about, all these things, especially investment, you have to understand that our children are an investment. I always tell my daughters this because this is very important. I say, it's what you feed them is what's going to determine how successful they are. That's a part of it. And it's what principles you give to them, because there's two things that need to be in place. You have to have a principle, you have to have a foundation, and you have to make sure that you feed them children properly, because that's what's going to steer them in the right direction, and that's what's going to determine their success. If you teach them principle and they become successful, they're always going to come back to the foundation and what they've been taught to give back and pay for it. So that's very important that we have to understand, because if you just give them education or let the system educate them, they become, great in this system. They're going to always feel like they owe the system something. So they're never going to bring it back to the community, because now they feel like the community ain't doing anything for them. So always start there. If we start there, we'll create a product that's going to always give back to our future generation. Definitely want to share that when it comes to generational wealth. And one of you brothers had anything to add to that?
Yes, I do have one more thing on this particular subject matter about the generational wealth. It starts at home. It starts at home. So if the parents don't have that wisdom right now, begin to seek it out, because it's available. You live in the information age. Everybody walks around with a phone in their pocket. So at the touch of a button, you can ask Google or AI, hey, how do I begin the path of financial freedom? What tutorials, what community college could I attend? What seminars could I attend? So the information is out there.
Right. All right. So we know what economic power looks like, but what's stopping us from getting there? So how much of our economic challenges come from systematic barriers versus personal decisions, Minister?
I'm gonna go right into where you came from, the generational wealth.
Okay.
Held. There's also a thing called generational poverty. And we have to be conscious. Like, that's what Juneteenth is about, to understand that collectively as a people, we suffer systematic poverty. Because I'm big on personal responsibility. But part of Juneteenth and understanding the systematic barriers is that after the Emancipation Proclamation, then they did the 13th Amendment to make it a law. Immediately after that, when they put black code and laws in place, where it was more difficult, like, yeah, you might be free, can't vote, they live in a certain place. Even if you bought, you was able to buy something, now they start red tagging the areas where you couldn't get access to capital. And you look back from 1800 to now, those areas where that happened, there is poverty there, and that was done by design. Like brown bag, yeah, there were a few subconsciously. You see, when you push that in, it teaches you to distrust one another, because what it says is we get our wealth or we get assistance or our help come from someone that don't look like us. And the less I look like us, the more successful I can be. But I mean, we fast forward now, James Brown say, I'm black and I'm proud. We proud of that. We wear it and we own that. But the system that was put in place, like immediately after, okay, you could be you were free, but they put laws on the books that says you got to have a job.
Right.
Because now they can arrest you. You're free, but if you ain't got a job, you can be arrested.
Very good. See.
And now you can be, and then I don't want to look up the code, but look it up. The law specifically said slavery and involuntary servitude was illegal. But if you were convicted of a crime, now they could put you in the involuntary servitude. So now you got masses of our people serving in the chain gang. And that's why it held back a lot. Yeah, progress. You had black statesmen, but it held back a lot because a lot of us were arrested, trumped up charges, put in jail, put in prison. Now you were right as a slave. You fast forward that to where we are today, that prison to school pipeline is real because look at the mass numbers of us that's incarcerated being working for free and as a slave. You might say you're not a slave, but when they put you in there, that's involuntary servitude, you're a slave. That's real.
All right.
And we have to understand that that's a reality moving forward. So we do have to, that's where the personal responsibility come in. Like the Juneteenth action is, we know that they have laws in place and the laws start from the top. And the one who's at the White House right now on the top is passing laws to roll. Like right now, when they're doing these things with redistricting and voting, it's specifically for black communities, which it takes away our voice, it takes away our power. Because if we had political control of our communities, we would control all the dollars within our community. But when you don't have political power, you don't get no green power. So we have to be conscious of it. We can navigate it, but it's education. It takes us being able to see there's that roadblock, there's that trap. But we don't want to go down that roadblock and trap. Now, how do we pool our resources? They may not loan me, but $50,000. But we need $500,000 to try to start this business that we want to do. They don't want to give me but 50. I got good credit, so they don't want to give me but 80. I mean, I need to find 5 more people.
Right.
Come up with it. Don't give up. We have to be able to see the reality there because there is no black bank unless we create it ourselves. So like you say, it takes credit. And then that's one of the traps that you go into debt early and you got bad credit. Your counterpart has financial backing and good credit, easier for them to be successful, but it's more difficult. So we have to, like Juneteenth has to be an actual understanding of what's going on and then how do we deal? Personal responsibility of where do I spend these dollars? How do I invest these dollars in my community? What good does it do for me to go make $1 million, but I pour it all into another community and my community is poor and suffering? And when we consciously don't see that, that's the generational curse that I'm talking about. And we suffering from that and we have to change it.
Yes, sir, indeed. Now that's something we definitely have to change. And like you say, some of the things we're not too far from, Jim Crow and a lot of the, things that they had in place to deny us from, capital, from a bank to start a business, housing, etc. So, but we're becoming more conscious of it. We are, speaking out in regards to it, and we're having more conversations about it. And I think that's the key thing, is having more conversations about it, because we become more knowledgeable about the situation. I'm glad, I see a lot of my sisters and brothers that are even in real estate, and we always looked at real estate as being how you gain true wealth in this country, but investing is one of the things I don't think we have come to a real understanding and knowledge behind. And I'm not just talking about investing in real estate, but just investing period, and when you don't know something, it tends to destroy you financially, because you're trying to learn whatever it is. Even if you've been deceived by institutions saying, "Come join my institution, pay $25,000, and I'm gonna teach you how to make $1 million." I mean, that sounds good, you're right. So if you got $25,000, say, "You're gonna teach me how to make $1 million," most likely you'll go and get in debt, because most likely you may not have the $25,000, but you can get a credit card, and now you get the credit card and you pay for it. Now you're in debt. So if it don't teach you that, because they may say, "Oh, well, you need another $25,000 to do this course over here. This is our advanced course over here." So you've been bamboozled because of the lack of knowledge that we have as a people, and a lot of us, we take advantage of that, knowing that some of us don't have that knowledge, and Ezekiel, um, just in case you want to chime in on this here, because I know, like, when it comes to, like, my question to you, I want to bring you in, but I want to reflect a little bit on our culture. And when it comes to cultural reflection, do we sometimes prioritize looking successful over actually building wealth?
Of course, we are the king of flogging, the queens of flogging. I want to have all this designer gear on, but again, I'm living check to check. Or I may have spent that check on that designer gear. Now, next week, I'm going to be with my hand out to somebody in my circle trying to get the money to pay my bills because I chose to look good. I mean, we see it on a weekly basis. People will work or hustle to get their money, and then they'll pour it all into their outfit, getting a haircut, getting their hair done to look good on the weekend. So we prioritize looking good. That's the mind frame that we operate out of. Whether it's, with the jewelry, the cars, we want to look successful. But again, we're right on the brink of poverty. And the stats show this, that almost 75% of Black or African American people in America are right at or below the poverty line. So even though you may have a house, a car, even the most what they call the middle class people are at that point. You one accident or one misfortune away from losing everything. But you look good when you step out of that house. Make sure you prioritize that you are looking like you have wealth. And like I say, we have a penchant for when, the designer gear, the Gucci, the Louis, and these people are not taking that money that we're providing them with and pouring it back in our communities. They are being parasites. They're taking and they're giving nothing in return. So we have to get back to wealth building, but it comes back to something that has led to the mass incarceration. Because of the lack of financial wisdom, we go out and we procure money through any means necessary. The modern term is I'm a hustler, and hustle can cover any aspect of getting money. And that's what leads to the mass incarceration. And then when you look at, as y'all was speaking about earlier, immediately after the emancipation of the slaves, the powers that be implemented the Jim Crow laws that allowed them to immediately rearrest everybody and put them in a new form of slavery, which was the prison system. Now you come up to this modern age, and as the sister Michelle Alexander so adequately explained in her book, The New Jim Crow Laws, how they're using the judicial system to create slavery. Because as I said earlier, in the Constitution, the only place in America slavery is allowed is in the prison system. Once you get convicted of a crime, you have no rights. And in the state prisons, we know you work for free. Everybody has a job. There's nobody in corrections, Department of Corrections, that doesn't have a job. So you're back on the slavery, but it's just in a more modern form. You're not on a plantation where you can come and go. Now you're on a plantation that got concrete, steel, and barbed wire encasing you into a small area. You like these animals that's in the zoos or that's on particular farms that got boundaries of how far that you can go. So we got to get out of that mentality that I got to look good by all costs, even if I go in debt looking like that. Because if I don't have the money at hand to purchase this particular outfit, I charge it. And then when I'm charging and I'm charging and I'm charging, now I'm $1,000 in credit card debt. And we know the interest on these credit cards start off at like 18, 19%. So that's the cycle that will keep you in debt indefinitely. And you're seeing like you're drowning. Now the stress is coming because I can't seem to get ahead. I'm working, I'm paying my bills, but it's like I'm on that hamster cycle. I'm not seeing any progress. And a lot, especially for men, it causes them to say, man, this ain't the way that I want to live. I need more. So their lack of a skill set is going to cause them to go and start hustling in some form, trying to get more. And in this day and age where nobody in the streets has the code of keeping their mouth closed, the chances of you getting captured for something like that right there is great, thus fueling the prison system even more. So we got to get out of the mentality that, hey, lack of economics is a good thing. We have to begin to start pooling our resources in our communities and start pouring into, especially our youth, how to use money as a tool so that they can get out of poverty instead of seeing money as a tool just to feed their materialistic desires. Because we know that clothes, shoes, cars, they change according to the season. This brand may be in this week, next week it's out the door. But I spent $200-300 on them shoes right here, and now they're no longer fashionable. And if I do try to sell them to somebody, I'm only going to get a fraction of what I paid for them. So now I purchased a liability instead of an asset. And this is what we got to get into, because our mindset is to look good by any means necessary. And that's our problem, because you can look at millionaires and these people walking around with cut off shorts, flip flops, but they living in mansions. They not wearing the designer. They not walking around with the jewelry. They putting their money in something that's going to continue to make money. They buying land, they buying buildings, they creating businesses. They doing stuff that's going to generate revenue for them. As you just said, if we commercialize Juneteenth, then who's going to come together and sell the products? We know on the 4th of July that we celebrate, we not making the firecrackers we setting off in our communities.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So that's somebody making money off of us purchasing those products right there. As you said, the flags and all of these products, somebody is making it. So when are we going to start feeding ourselves? When are we going to start clothing ourselves? Because these are human needs. We all have to eat. We all need shelter. We all need clothing. That same cow that gave his hide to Nike, he'll give his hide to me too. So we got to begin to understand that in order to get out of that generational poverty mentality and move toward riches, it starts with our way of thinking. And our way of thinking is doing and based upon the information that we feed ourselves. So we have to start feeding ourselves economic information, which means taking away from the TMZ, the soap operas, and the TV shows we so infatuated with. We have to switch our mental diet in order for us to get up out of that poverty mentality.
All right, brother. So I'm getting signs that we have to take a commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the solution, because this is what this program is all about. So we're going to go to a commercial break. We're going to come back and keep this topic. We'll be right back.
At NOY Store, we bring culture, style, and wellness all in one place. Explore our collection of cultural apparel designed to inspire and connect. From t-shirts to polos, boldly tell your story. Need guidance on your journey? Check out our books written to inspire and support your spiritual, personal, and community growth. And give your body the care it deserves with our health and wellness products like natural toothpaste, soothing body butters, and more. We're always adding new products to empower your life so you can live with purpose and style. Visit NOYstore.com today, where culture, wellness, and inspiration come together. Shop at NOY Store. What do all these people have in common besides a beautiful smile, healthy teeth, and gums? They all use Zodi toothpaste. Zodi toothpaste is made with all natural ingredients. Zodi toothpaste is fortified with moringa and baking soda. Zodi toothpaste is suds-free, making it an excellent choice for kids. All natural, fortified, and suds-free. Get yours today at NOYstore.com.
All right, family. So we're going to shift the gears a little bit. We're going to talk about solutions. We're talking about all the issues. We're talking about Juneteenth and, how we can, truly become free today, because we're still denied access to certain things even today. And we're becoming more conscious of that, day by day as we, information, we're living in the information age. So we're becoming more conscious of that. But there's still doors or rooms that we're shut out of that, we still need access to. All right. So let's talk about solutions based off of what we shared earlier. And Brother Ezekiel, I know I oftentimes we hear you talk about systems and things of that nature. So what are 2 or 3 real steps people listening right now can take to start building economic power?
The first thing I would do if I was a parent or over a community of people to teach them financial freedom is books. Everything is written down. Everything is recorded. Fall back on the intelligence of the people that came before you, because whatever endeavor that you engaging in, somebody did that before you. The construction business was around before you was living. So grasp the information of those people right there. So I will arm myself with books, because you can pick them up at any given time. You can watch tutorials. You can watch YouTube videos. And there may be certain times when your phone go dead or you don't have access to your phone. That's why I say keep a book on deck. You can sit down and have family meetings and y'all speak about this right here. Teach your children about assets. Teach them about liabilities. Teach them what an IRR is, a high yield savings account is. So they'll learn how to sit their money in these banks the way it'll make money instead of just sitting there and doing no growth. You want your money to give birth to more money while you sleep, not while you working. That way, eventually, your money will begin to work for you instead of you working for money. So you start, like I say, I believe everything starts at home. So everybody needs to start at home teaching principles about economics. And as a parent, if you don't know, watch again documentaries, watch tutorials, read books, go online and look up certain financial gurus. These people have online seminars, they have online courses. And you and your family can take those courses together. Y'all can make that, okay, once a week, we're going to spend an hour learning about finances. We're going to watch this video for 20 minutes, then sit down and discuss it. Or that particular guru may have a workbook that will allow you to get a better understanding of the information. But you have to seek the information. And the reliable steps is begin to educate yourself through these means right here because they are available. The information is literally walking around in your pocket or your purse. So you could be at a red light, you could be standing in line at McDonald's, and you can peek for a minute or two and read about something concerning economics, and then pass that on to your household or your friends or anybody that's in your circle. These are realistic things that you can do daily to begin to become educated economically, to begin to move to fight your way out of that poverty mentality.
Right. And Minister, I know you're big on supporting Black businesses. One of the things you often do was bring out $100 bill.
Oh yes.
When it comes to that,
That's it's
how important is it for us to support Black-owned businesses, and what does that actually look like beyond social media?
it's extremely important because as a Black business owner, I don't get the majority of the more than 50% of my revenue doesn't come from my community. Unfortunately, it's a lot lower than that. And I think a lot of Black businesses have that same issue because they're not consciously supporting one another, supported one another more, then we can create more jobs. You create more jobs, now you help family. But glad you said that, but it's a thing called delayed gratification. I'm glad you brought it up because I like to do it. You got to make it like it's yours. When you get paid, when you get ready to spend, you need to consciously decide, am I going to give my wealth, keep it in my community? Or am I going to take my wealth and put it outside of my community? I take my wealth and put it outside of my community, then you suffer and I suffer. But when I take my wealth and put it inside the community, you benefit and I benefit. And we have to be really conscious about that, like making a conscious effort, because it's so easy to spend, especially when you got online and without even thinking that I can get that same good or service right down the street. Or is there someone online that look and think like me that I can get that same good or service? I keep that wealth in the community, but you have to make when you look at it, it makes a conscious effort. Are we gonna keep it? So we can't blame someone when we doing it ourselves.
Right.
But we can consciously put it in. So that means, you know what? I'm not gonna buy it today. I might have to wait wait 2 days. Keep it in my community. It's that delayed gratification, like that instant gratification, will make you spend it outside. But if you stop and think, you'll find out that I can spend a lot more of my resources in my community. And it just becomes real when you do it, when you touch it. Like, I know now we paying with the card and we swipe it, but this will make you think about it when you spend it. And the more we support one another, because we spend a lot of money making this country wealthy. If we put 20% of that back into our community, overnight, it will change. But we just have to conscious decision. And the other part is talking to our children, like you say about we need to talk to them about credit and the pitfalls of bad credit. Like a young, if you're a teenager, you graduate in high school, or you finna get out of college, they will give you credit because they want you to get in debt. But you have to talk to them about not like real simple, basic. I know we got. If you want to buy something and you have the money, if you're going to use the credit should be to invest in a business, or it should be for purchases, not to get in debt. So if you're going to purchase those, you want those Air Jordan, if you got the cash, that will be the time to use your credit card and simply pay it off in full at the end of the month. It's pay it off in full at the end of the month. It builds your credit. But if you don't have the money, don't use the credit card and you don't have the money.
And you don't have no means to get the money.
Because that's when the debt come in. And that's the minimum payment. And it's a cycle. So you have to have that conversation. If that means taking that card and locking it up, so you learn, I don't use it unless it's a case of an emergency or an investment. Because then when your son and my daughter get together and they both have good credit, decent credit, now it makes it easier for them to purchase a home because they're starting out right. Very basic things like that we didn't get taught about how to use. We got taught how to be in debt.
Yeah, and that's going, I'm glad you brought that up because that goes into talking about like ownership, the importance of ownership. And we know we should all own something. I mean, a lot of we try to get to that level for understanding what needs to happen at the foundation level as far as getting yourself mentally prepared to get to that level. Because once you get there, you can make a lot of mistakes financially, that can destroy a marriage, a relationship. So we do have to understand like we have to create a financial foundation for ourselves. And from that financial foundation, then we start to build on that. Ownership comes into place where now we have ownership from a property where we can take equity out to start a business. So now we thinking about true wealth, so that's how you create true wealth, because now it eliminates you getting into debt because you have something to work with. And I believe in building anything, it starts with a strong foundation and forms from a strong foundation, you can establish anything from a strong foundation, because you can always go back to that. Because if you got hundreds of thousands of dollars in a bank account because you was financially sound enough to put that money away, you can always go back to how you established that. But if you don't have that and you're trying to reach those goals without having that strong foundation, then you're lost if you ever lose that, because you never had a foundation from the beginning. And just understanding that allows for one to start at that level. So financial literacy is a foundation we can start when it comes to building wealth. We have to start with financial literacy. And I think my brother had alluded to that. What will what we'll learn from this is the power of ownership. If you learn the power of ownership, it will put you on a path to sustain great wealth and success if we learn that. But it also going back to what you're saying as far as support, we have to have biased support for one another. Because if we have biased support for one another, ain't nothing sway us away from doing what we know we should be doing. Because oftentimes we go into a situation and you know you're supposed to be supporting your brother or your sister, but you have in the back of your head like something gonna go wrong, and when it go wrong, I'm gonna say I told you so, because you don't have a biased, conscious, effort of doing business with yourself. Because really, you're doing business with yourself. Like the point that you brought up, that benefits you and it benefits me. Because see, I'm as a business owner, and you come in and support me as a business owner, when something happened in your family, most likely I'm gonna be the one that's gonna help contribute to making sure that you're okay. So there's a death that happened in your family, like, oh man, I'm so sorry. Like, what else can we do? Like these corporations and businesses ain't gonna come at you like that.
Not one nickel.
Yeah, and nor can you go there and say, I've been spending a lot of money with you guys all year. I just lost, my husband. I just lost my wife. Can y'all, donate towards, the funeral services? No, we don't know you. All we know is the dollars you've been spending with you. But that connection in the community with your local business owners, and supporting that is very important. It's what's going to really build our culture and take us to that next level. So Juneteenth, in my opinion, is all about that. It's bringing us back to the core reason of why it's important for us as a community to come together and support one another. And I want to leave, I think my engineer is waiting, but I want to leave us with this one question. I want all of us to kind of answer this question. What does generational wealth look like for you personally? And I'll start with you.
For me, it's taking that money and building upon it, saving it up for the future. We know that every day is not going to be a sunny day. It's going to rain, it's going to snow some days. So you got to have that emergency fund. So when you're building that emergency fund up, that's the fund, like the King teaches us, to put that percentage of your money up and never touch it so that it can grow. So financial wealth for me is saving a portion of the money. Because, they say rich people only live off 20% of their income. They don't live off the whole 100% like we do. And that's why they're able to grow. So growing that and then teaching those precepts to everybody in my circle and that's coming under me so that they can do the exact same thing.
And I totally agree. And because what he said is a preface to what I'm going to say. Part of that is you have to have savings and emergency. And then the next thing, critically, live within your means. Make sure that you save and invest a portion of everything that you make. And you do that religiously. Because you can have a family that's making $75,000. But if they save and invest a portion of that, every time they get paid, you can have another family making $250,000, but they spending everything that they make. In 20 years, these people who save and investing, their net worth will be closer to getting that million, whereas the 200,000 will be in debt and broke. Because you need to make sure you're saving and investing a portion of every dollar that you, and that comes from the rich living with means. Don't matter what the Joneses got, Mike can afford it. That's how you get in debt. But if you live within your means, save and invest, that's how you build wealth.
I say you brothers hit the nail right on the head. Because when we think about generational wealth, that's what we're thinking about. How we make it easier for the generations after us. Creating some type of way where passive income come in, residual income come in, and the generation after us don't have to stress as much because they may have a 529 plan set up now that's going to take them through school. They ain't have to, stress the fact that they can't pay for college because college is already paid for. They ain't got to stress the fact that I got to find a job when I finish college because there's a business right there waiting on you to jump right in it. So when we think about generational wealth, those are all the things that set up the next generation to continue to get wealthier, because that's what it's all about. It's about taking what was left behind for you and increasing that. We didn't have anything left behind for us, so it was nothing to increase.
Started at zero.
Right. We're at a point right now that we're trying to, I ain't gonna say trying, I'm saying we're at a point right now that we're working hard to make sure that we set up the next generation. And we do that through all our organizations, whether it's MOP, Men of Purpose, Builders of the Highway Foundation, Temple Brothers and Sisters of Goodwill, all the organizations that we work with, we try to implement this in these organizations so that now we set up generational wealth and just, and generational wealth can also be a part of that building block that we're talking about, teaching our children how to gain wealth, because that wasn't taught to us neither. Like I mentioned earlier, like we had to pay for a lot of this stuff. We had to pay for, business classes done in Brad Street and learning all about these things here. And they just taking money from us and we're not getting the education and information we truly need. So now we're surviving financially instead of understanding or being taught that building block of wealth that we was talking about earlier. So that's the difference. If we can leave that behind for our youth, like how to build wealth opposed to surviving financially, I think we'll accomplish that goal. All right. Any last words, my brothers?
I'm gonna say this is a happy
government wealth.
Lots of information. Let's have a happy Juneteenth, but keep it moving.
Yes, sir, indeed. And I just say Juneteenth reminds us that freedom delayed is freedom, is still freedom worth fighting for. But today, the fight looks different. It's about ownership, knowledge, discipline, and unity. So I say from the host, Peace and Prosperity, and from Live Talk, we are out.
Thank you for watching Live Talk. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Talk Orlando. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit on the notification button so that you can see more videos like this. If you want to join the show, email us at livetalkorl@gmail.com. You can also follow the host on Facebook and Instagram at Arthur Jeremiah. And visit the website, thenoystore.com, to pick up your copy of The Spiritual Significance of a Name.